I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Welcome to today's episode. I want to introduce you to our guest, Ashelyn of Urban Dwell Studio. She is a wife, mom of five, pattern designer, podcast host, and artist. From an early age, Ashelyn was always creating, from playing art school with her cousins and forcing her younger sisters to practice plays and dance routines for hours and hours on end, to constructing mini homes from Q-tips and glue. There was always something to transform and beautify. As an adult, her love for textiles flourished as she found herself making her family's house into a home. During the pandemic, she began transforming vintage quilts into usable products, and a small business was born. Upon working with so many incredible quilts, Ashlyn decided to try her own hand at this art form that was such a large part of her life. So she made her first quilt in March of 2022. Then she made another, and another, and another. And while she's fairly new to quilting, her sewing experience, pattern writing, and design background have culminated into creating beginner-friendly quilt patterns that represent the styles and the spaces of the people that get to use them. Pulling inspiration from the full evolution of 20th century architecture, 90s grunge, street art, travel, and pop culture, she combines minimalist color palettes and artistic concepts to her work, which she hopes will inspire the next generation of quilters so that when they discover the joy that is quilting, there is an entire subculture corner of the quilting world with their names on it, waiting with arms wide open. Thank you for being in a closet at least, because I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes rooms are
Echo.
so
Yeah.
echoey.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean, yeah. Ours, we usually record in like my sister-in-law's basement. And even that, like, it's kind of a bougie basement. So, like, the high ceilings are like too much sometimes.
mhm.
I think we need to like actually build a blanket for it.
I I'm not against it. I think it would probably be better than having a bunch of like insulation panels around you.
I think we just revolutionized the podcasting quilting community. And
Yeah,
yeah, we made new rules. So,
I'm here for it. Well, thank you so much, Ashlyn, for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk to you. So let's get into it.
right.
Tell me all the things. How did you get started in quilting and what was that like?
Well, I'm like a really new quilter. I guess I wouldn't classify my skill level as beginner, but I literally started quilting in March last year. So we're
Okay.
coming up on the year mark, and it just like was wildfire. I had previously actually made a quilt maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, but it was literally to fulfill the need of I'm having a baby and we need to redo this bedroom for my kids, and wasn't finding what I wanted as far as like bedding went. And so I'm like, "Oh, I can make something." So I just made this like strip pieced quilt, and it, I mean, it turned out really good. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law kind of like co-owned a long arm machine at the time. And like, I totally took that for granted, but, like, I didn't really know or even think of finishing it a different way, so I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is what they do. This is how you just finish a quilt."
Right.
So they, like, made me quilt it, like, pregnant, and it was, like, not automated, and so I had to go, like, line to line, just, like, wavy,
Mhm.
but it turned out really good, and I was, like, pretty proud of it. And then when we switched up the decor in that room, I literally just gave the quilt away, and I like, that's how, like, quilting didn't click for me. I didn't put any, like, value on that first quilt, and,
Mm.
I mean, I regret it now because it would be really cool to have, and it was a cool quilt, but I don't know what was wrong with me. I guess just trying to minimalize or something. I'm like, "Why did I throw that away?" Or I didn't throw it away, I gave it away, but just
Yeah.
yeah, got rid of it. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I have always kind of done creative stuff, but I at the end of 2020, I started like a little handmade business on Etsy. I had a old, like, vintage quilt that I had repurposed, and I had so much left over. And I was like, "Oh, I'll just make some cute little stockings."
Mhm.
I listed them on Facebook Marketplace, and they were gone in, like, under an hour. They were
Wow.
all sold out, and I was like, "Well, that's a nice way to make money because 'cause I'm just always on the hunt for the next business model."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, serial entrepreneur and serial crafter hobbyist.
Yeah.
So I found some more vintage quilts and made more stockings, and I ended up selling, like, almost 300 stockings that year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just, like, on Facebook Marketplace, and so I was like, "Oh, now I have a lot of little scraps of these scraps, what can I do?" And so I just went and it snowballed, and I turned it into, like, just a repurposed vintage quilt kinda Etsy shop, and
Yeah.
it was really successful. I kinda like, I don't know, I tend to just make things up as I go,
Mhm. Yeah.
as far as patterns go, and
Mhm.
so I was making my own patterns for the things that I was doing, and I ended up writing out one of the patterns, which was the fanny pack pattern,
Mm.
and it sold really well, and then people were just so excited to have it, and I looking back, I'm like, "Oh, it was just, like, a really lucky fluke that I got in on the, like, vintage quilt repurpose train when
Yeah.
I did." But I wasn't really passionate about it, so it was really, really hard to, like, be making great money with it and then feeling like, "Oh, I really don't like this,"
Yeah, it wasn't fulfilling you.
which is, like, I loved the creative process, but it was just, like, not my style, and so when it came to doing, like, anything like product photos and
Mhm.
any type of, like, Instagram stuff, I felt like it was always such a chore, and I was like,
Mm.
"It shouldn't be like this."
Yeah.
So last spring, I made the decision to just start doing more of my patterns for the stuff, and I was like,
Mhm.
It, like, is really fulfilling when people buy your pattern and make what you make, and they want to make what you make."
Yeah. I can
So I
imagine.
Yeah, I decided to just start, like, transitioning, kinda set a deadline. I was like, "Oh, I have a summer market and a fall market locally that was really great. People loved the stuff there," and I just was like, "I think this will be my last one," and so I set my fall one for my last one.
Mhm.
I basically, like, liquidated all of my inventory of my handmade stuff, and I just, like, stopped.
Mm.
My Etsy shop is still there, and I have my, like, 2 patterns still. I still haven't written more than that for, like, small objects, but,
Mhm.
I in the meantime of, like, transitioning, I had found quilting, and I could not fathom spending my time any other way. Like, all I wanted to do was quilt, which I think is, like, typical new quilter, like, absolutely obsessed, but, um, in the transition, I was like, "Well, what if I take these weird quilt ideas that I have that people are pointing out are really weird and out there, and, like, combine my interest for making other patterns, and I make quilt patterns."
Mhm.
So that's what I did. I did the quilt pattern writing class from Elizabeth Chapel
Mhm.
in the fall, and I launched my first quilt pattern this year. So, yeah.
That's so cool. And it's like, I think when you find something that fulfills you and, like, speaks to your soul like that, even at this stage, I've been quilting 6 years, like, it doesn't go away. Like, I still wanna be sewing and quilting all the time, and I think it is nice that I don't have, like, a situation set up at home because I do have to create boundaries for myself or I will do it nonstop.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it's still on my mind 24/7 and, like,
You go everywhere. It's like, "That would be a cool quilt."
yeah, yeah. My
My
husband and I were in
family's like,
sp
"You're annoying."
oh, we're like, can you stop?" I know my husband's like, not everything has to be a quilt or about quilting. I'm like, "Yeah, no, yeah, it does." But we were in
It
Spain and,
does.
like, seeing tiles, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
"That look at that's such a cool like, I've seen quilts like that." He's like, "Okay, great." I'm like, "No, but seriously." He's like, "No, seriously,
No, se
stop." Like, "Oh,
That's
whatever."
hilarious. I know. They're just I mean, pattern is so, like, natural, and then, like, our human brains just want it to be beautiful, and so we want to just recreate it. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's wild.
yeah. But I'm with you. I think, like, that ability to see things and wanna make them and have the ability to know how to make them is really feels like magic sometimes because I think we go through maybe and I can only speak for myself really, I guess, but I just went through a lot of my life thinking, like, that I couldn't do certain things. But as I've like gotten older and gotten more sure of myself and really practiced different skills and gone out of my comfort zone for things, it's like, oh, I can do these things and I am creative and I can come up with ways to accomplish the things I want to accomplish. And so I think quilting just lets you lean into that more too.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you said you transitioned your business from, like, the homemade kinda or handmade, like, repurposed quilty items into Urban Dwell Home or sorry, Urban Dwell Studio, and that was last fall?
Yeah. Like, officially in October.
Okay, and how was that for you? Like, did you have an emotional tie to the other side of your business that felt, like, weird? Did you grieve it in any way? Or
Truthfully, I kind of grieved the income. It was a really good revenue stream, and, I mean, really fortunately, I'm a stay-at-home mom primarily, and so it's not our primary source of income, but, like, we were kinda getting used to it,
Mhm,
and, like, having that extra bit of, like, fun money was really good, but
mhm,
I think overall, like, my mental health is has been so much better since, and, like, not stressing about having to ship out orders every day and all of
mhm.
that kinda stuff is has been really nice and refreshing, so
Yeah,
I guess a little bit I've missed it, but as
yeah.
far as the production, not really.
Yeah, that part can be so hard. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to ship all these things." Like,
Yeah.
get them out in a timely manner or Etsy gets mad at you and, like
Right. You lose your star seller badge that actually means nothing, but
I know.
somehow they make it really important.
It's, like, super arbitrary. I know, and I think that's, like, the trickiest thing I've found at least, just, like, I'm making a unique one of a kind thing and giving, like, a 6 to 8 week time window and then getting mad at me when I'm on the tail end of that 8 weeks. It's like I know it's not, has doesn't have feelings, but, like, just that it's like, "Mm, you're gonna miss out on star status again." I'm like, "I
Right.
don't care."
The
Like
passive aggressive Etsy email.
yeah, exactly. I'm just like, "Okay, great." It's not because I'm not shipping out items, like, you know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah,
forgetting about my business. I'm just like, when you're doing this kind of crafty, creative business, you have to, like, really consider that part, and I think they're just
yeah,
forgetting about the makers who they're supposed to be supporting, but
right. Well, Etsy has changed so much in the last couple of years with just,
mhm,
like, the resellers and, like, the supply sellers, and I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure they need to be there and there is a space for them. I just wish it was kind of a different platform because it's not the same, and it's hard
mhm,
to compete with that expectation when customers will buy something that takes a day to ship out, and then your thing takes several days to weeks, and, like, that is, like, lost on them that it's being handmade, like, after they order it,
right. Like, I
and
can't
it's
just have
on
it
Amazon.
yeah, right? It's not just, like, ready-made sitting on a shelf, it's like, no,
Right.
I'm starting from complete scratch, working with the client, trying to make sure that you're interpreting their vision correctly, and if they're shipping you stuff to incorporate into your quilt, it's like, "Okay, great." So then you have to wait for that, and it's like, yeah, it's crazy, but I think it is we wouldn't have the revenue that we have without it, so it's like, it is hard to
Yeah.
be too mad about it.
Yeah.
'Cause you're
It's a
like, "Oh"
love-hate, kinda like
yeah.
Instagram.
Mhm. Yeah, you're like, "I mean, I wouldn't have my business without this, but I still don't like it."
True.
Oh my gosh. Well, how has, like, because you said your mental health has been better, so how has it, like, changed your perspective on your place in the creative business space and what you're providing to the community?
I think in general, I'm happiest making what I want to make and then offering that to others. And whether or not they want to buy it,
Mhm,
I mean, I'm kind of unfazed by it because I'm not creating to please them. Creating to please myself and then offering it to them after the fact.
mhm,
Um, I mean, sure, with my patterns, sometimes I'll make final decisions on like, oh, this would be kind of annoying to have to do. But like
sure.
in general, the entire concept is something that I'm really pleased with and am like really proud to offer people.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, I think that's just the thing. And like the imposter syndrome of like feeling like I'm just like trying to make money off of people
mhm,
by selling what I know they want to buy. Um, it kind of broke me a little bit, but yeah,
yeah.
I think doing that differently now feels so much better. And yeah, just the relief and not having the stress of, I think the shipping was truly like just really killing me.
Yeah,
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 I can see that with the shipping, but, like, and just trying to stay like, honor yourself and, like, what you want to do and how you want to show up in that space, like, I think, like you were saying, there's so much pressure to create something that you know people wanna buy, but if it's not, like, enhancing your life in any way or, like, allowing you to really show your creative truth, then it's like, "Why are you even doing it?"
right. And it's like, oh, I mean, the amount of work is probably similar in time, but like doing something once and creating a digital pattern that people can download forever
Right.
is so much different than trying to make 150 Easter baskets before March 1st so that people can see them, buy them, receive them before Easter,
Mhm.
like festivities even start. I think that is just another aspect of like the relief I feel and like having to always be like 5 months ahead, six
Mm.
months ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like you don't get to enjoy the here and now because you're always trying to think so
right.
far ahead. So, like, you're trying to enjoy Christmas, but you're already thinking, like, Easter and springtime and, like, what do people want
Yeah,
for summer? It's like, "No, I wanna be here, right now." Like,
right.
I wanna enjoy the space I'm in this moment.
Yeah. And I have 5 kids, and so it's just like I wasn't enjoying time with them. I was just like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, but on the way, we're stopping at the post office."
Right? You're like, "Mommy's
And
busy."
yeah, like, as soon as you guys go to bed tonight, I'm gonna make 40 stockings.
Right? Yeah. That's a lot of babies.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'm always like my sister-in-law, my brother, they have my oldest niece, she's 13, and then they have twins who are almost 10, and I'm always like, "That's a lot of babies," but then you're the 2nd person I've now interviewed that has 5 kids, and I'm like, "Oh my god."
It's yeah, the Jim Gaffigan joke where he
Yeah.
says it's like you're drowning and then somebody hands you a baby. It's
Yeah.
completely accurate.
You're like, "It's fine, just give me another one."
Yeah.
That's awesome that you get to be around with them, though, and I always, like I'm a hard advocate for, like, working on your mental health, and I think it's really important for our kids to see too, like, at least, you know, my boys, they're my stepsons, but I've been their stepmom for a really long time, so, like, we're a really big part of each other's lives, and one of the things that they say to us is just that, like, watching us be willing to, like, work through our lives and, like, not feel like we have to stick with a certain thing if it's not working out, like, we both left our regular jobs to do the thing that we love to do, and, they're different things, but, like, we're both so much more fulfilled and happier, and we are always working on, being better people. And they're like, that has the biggest impact on us because we see that, like, how much better things are in that realm. And so, like, being able to do that with your kids and, like, show them what it's like to really honor who you are as a person and, like, do what you want to do. It doesn't always work out for everybody, which is unfortunate. But when you can make it work, it's like, yeah, do it. Grab onto that.
Yeah, and I think just showing them how to, I don't know, even just pointing out their talents that they have now
Hmm.
and helping them develop those and be passionate about, I mean, they all have their different things, but I have a
Yeah.
creative child as well. And I'm like, I would hate to see her go down the same path as I did and think like, oh, you should go to medical school. That's a good idea. And I didn't, but I started to. And
Right.
like hindsight, I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me like, no, you're gonna hate that?
Right. Yeah. It's like you don't have to do anything. And that's what we try to tell our kids too. Like, whatever you want to do it 100%, and, like, do it for yourself. Like, get those experiences that you want to have under your belt, because if you wait, you're going to just be so sad that you took too much time to get there. And, like, I mean, I don't regret my path. I think I needed to do whatever it is, like the teaching and going through all that and taking 1,000 years to get through college when I'm not a doctor. But hey, what elementary major doesn't want to spend 10 years in university? But
It's a really good idea because, they pay you really well and
it's
you probably could recoup that money in the first year.
oh, if only that were true. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that's cool. But yeah, you know, I think there's ways you can appreciate your journey and, like, how you got to where you're at. But I think when we can, like, share that with our kids and the next generation of quilters even, or just creative
Mhm.
minds, like, there's so many different ways to go about getting where you wanna get, and you don't have to have, like, fancy letters behind your name to get there.
Yeah. That's a big
So
proponent of like my patterns as well, is like they're mostly all beginner friendly.
mhm,
And I just want new quilters or even experienced quilters that want modern quilting, but like don't know how to get there.
mhm,
Like they've walked into a traditional quilt shop and like, yeah, they probably see stuff they like, but maybe their brain doesn't know how to get from point A to point B. And I just want like a solid jumping off point where they see like, oh, that's how you can make this without having to know 10 years of quilting that is basically useless,
yeah,
or things that you didn't really like making.
mhm.
And I think unfortunately that's how a lot of modern quilters get to the modern side.
Yeah, they've, like, experienced so much they didn't like and felt like they had to go the traditional route first, and it's like, you can jump headfirst into the modern world and be
Yeah.
just fine. And
That's how so many of the like beginner quilting classes start though, even at like local quilt shops. And so
mhm.
I don't know. I'd love to see that change quite a bit, but I think it'll take time.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also think, like, there's so many more voices out there trying to share kind of this modern approach to it that I think we'll get there sooner than we think.
I think so.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
crossing my fingers, because I would love to see that. And just, like, even the more modern quilt shops I've been to, I think they have got lots of good modern fun fabrics that people want to see. But then, yeah, it's like ultimately the patterns that they're producing as models in the store or making kits for is, like, all the really more traditional type quilts. And I'm like, you're missing the mark.
Right.
Like, read the room, my friends. But
We want the weird stuff.
yeah, like, give me the weird ones. I like them. I'm a weird one too. So
Yeah.
speaks to me.
Yeah.
But that's so fun. So then is it your sister-in-law? You just started your own quilty podcast? The
Yes. The
Grateful
great
Thread?
thread.
I love that. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is good."
And we've had so many people say like, "Darn it, I wish that was my name." Or like
Yeah.
my handle. And I was like, sorry, just I
Oh,
came up with the idea.
snooze you lose.
Yep.
That's amazing. So, like, what prompted you guys to start it?
Honestly, just kind of that same thing of like being a beginner quilter and not finding what you want to make to learn how to quilt.
Mhm,
And I mean, so many of us have that experience of like being a new quilter and being really excited about what you make, and the people around you not really getting it, or the traditional quilters in your life not being super excited about how your points line up on
mhm,
your very first quilt.
right? You're like,
And so
"Calm down."
yeah, it's kind of just like a an ode to beginner quilters and young quilters and yeah, all the people in between, I think.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that the community is growing in that way because I think there is so much to offer, but I think there is like a weird barrier to it sometimes with the generational differences and the perspectives on it. And if we want this to continue, this tradition of quilting to continue, we have to make room for people to make what they want to make and not be so judgy and like sometimes people are like they're so mean and judgy. I'm like, get out of here, Brenda. Like what?
Karen.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like I appreciate and I do, I advocate for this too, like going to your local quilt shop and talking to the quilters that work there or are hanging out there because they do have a wealth of knowledge, but like when they start crossing over into the territory of trying to tell you not to use certain fabrics or that you shouldn't combine certain colors together, you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. And I'm like,
My quilt, my rules.
yeah, like, I didn't ask your opinion on the aesthetics of my quilt. I asked your opinion or how much fabric to buy or, like, thankfully now because I make so many stinking quilts, like, I know how to figure all that stuff out for myself, and I don't have to ask as many questions, but it is a good place to start, but I also think, like, I love because I have been working at a quilt shop a couple days a week, but I love when people are like, "Oh, we'll just ask Amanda, like, I'll have you talk to her because she's really knowledgeable in this." And it's like, "Yes, then I can share this information and like be the person that intercepts that question and not be like, "Well,
Right, that
now here's what
negativity.
you have to do this and you have to do that." And then be so frustrated by the process that I don't ever want to do it again. Like, I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
Could
And I
just be
think,
me.
well, I think the demographic of like new quilters has changed so much.
Mhm.
I mean, part of it's probably the pandemic, but even prior to that, I mean, new quilters were typically retired women
Mhm.
who now have time on their hands and want to start a hobby. And now new quilters tend to be younger, and this is how they are choosing to spend their free time while still raising children or
Mhm.
I don't know, working a full-time job. And so
Yeah.
I think quilting needs to change a little bit and the
Mhm.
mentality of like what a good quilt is needs to change a lot.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I also think people need to not care about what a good quilt is.
Yeah. Like, if you're putting it in a show or it's on display or there's, some reason why it needs to have certain specifications, then for sure, like, if you want your quilt to be judged, then you're asking for that. But I think just in general, if somebody's like, "Look at this thing I made," like, you don't ever, ever tell your kids that the art that they show you when they're
That
5
stick
is
figure's
ugly.
crap.
Yeah, like, "You need to learn how to draw better." Like, you would never say that to a kid, and I feel like artistic expressions, no matter how old we are, and quilting is one of those things, is the same exact thing. It's our inner child going, "Look at this,"
Right.
and being
Yeah,
so
I
excited. Like,
totally.
"Don't yuck my yum."
I kind of wonder if part of it isn't like a lot of quilters don't view themselves as artists. And so
Mm,
like that like artistic respect that exists in other art communities like
mhm,
isn't really there. I don't know. That's something that I've wondered about. I'm like, why is it hard for old women to just be nice? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I would have to think really hard about how to say something mean like that.
Yeah, it's like, do you just have that in your back pocket at all times? Like, they complain about younger people being so rude, and I'm like, do you not know how you present yourself to the world that that's the response you get? Like, people are rude back to you because you're rude first.
Yep, yep.
And it's not
Particularly on
all,
the internet. Yeah,
yeah,
not all.
yeah, not all of them. I've run across quite a few really nice ladies, and in our guild, I've kind of, you know,
Yeah,
made my little group of people that I love and spend choose to spend my time around when we're at meetings and stuff. But it's I also took up the task of being the new member, like I run the new member social event. And so every month I
you're the
offer,
recruiter.
yeah, like if you sign up as a new member, you can come to this cool thing. And it's just a little, meet and greet at a coffee shop. But like, I want to be the face of the guild that people see so that
Yeah,
they can see that like there are younger people that really truly care about this craft and are passionate about it. So
totally. Yeah,
anyway.
guilds are hard, I think,
Mhm.
because you go to see your quilty friends and like you're so excited to be there. And then when there's a new person, it's not hard to go out of your way, but you want to talk to the people that you already know.
Mhm.
Um, but I
Mhm.
think being really intentional about how you welcome new people to your guild, that's a really cool idea that you guys do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that was like one of the things that when my mom and I joined, that really made me go, "Oh my gosh, like that's really cool." It was so nice to have familiar faces to when we went to the, next meeting. It was like, "Oh, there's Barb, there's, so and so, there's Susan, there's," and we were able
Nice.
to like find our little posse of people that joined at the same time. And so we weren't walking into a big room full of people we didn't know. And so being able to continue that and provide that, I think it has helped change my perspective on the quilting community in that sense of like, oh, I really want to like make this a nice, safe, welcoming place. And if I can be an instrument in that in any way, like I want to be. So anyway, it's kind
Love
of
that.
cool.
I'm gonna try to steal that. I'm gonna make our
Okay,
guild do that.
do it. You should, honestly, it's
That's a
so fun.
really good idea.
Like
It's so intentional. You
eh,
just revolutionized how guilds work. Good job.
I mean,
Everybody listening is gonna be like, we're doing that.
yeah, I hope they do because it's been a really cool thing. And the guild has done it for a long time. It's just like, or, my guild has done it for a long time, but I was just like, I want to be more involved. And I took it over and my mom was like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, well, I am. But um, yeah. So I really hope you do. And you can pick my brain if you want to about it.
Okay,
But
I definitely will. I mean, it won't be my job. We have like
yeah.
a membership person, so I'll tell her to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's like a subcommittee of like the membership committee. So I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like my only responsibility is just like hosting those coffees.
How big is your guild?
It's huge. Well, we probably have like almost 300 members total. Yeah, I know. And it's been around
That is
for,
massive.
I know, it's been around for 40. This is our Ruby Jubilee, like our
Oh,
40th anniversary. And so like we have a quilt show in the fall every year. And the quilt that will be raffled off for the quilt show was revealed on Thursday night at our meeting, and I was like, "Oh, it's Idaho themed because,
cute.
we're in Idaho, and it just has all these different blocks of different things that represent Idaho, and it's just so beautiful." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna buy like 100 raffle tickets." But
Where in Idaho are you?
I'm in Boise.
Oh, okay. My dad lives in Boise.
Oh,
We're in Salt
really?
Lake. Well, Layton. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not too far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you're here, you should come visit me.
I totally will.
Okay,
Like
good.
100%. I'll at least message you and be like, where do I need to go?
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay, this is great.
Give me the
I'm
quilt
s
hookup.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so fun. You can come see my studio, and
I'd love that.
it's at my mom's house, so it's not like fancy, but it's really fun.
Well,
Y
yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, how cool. So, have you always been in the Salt Lake area or
Yeah and no. We moved from North Dakota as, like, I was a child, well,
Mhm.
junior high. So, yeah, like,
Okay.
half my
Most of your
life.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Like, all of my family is in North Dakota, so
Mhm.
it's hard to be like, "I'm from Utah," but I guess I'm I've definitely tipped the time of, like, or the amount of time here than there, but it
Mhm.
still feels like home in North Dakota just because that's where all of our people are, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, all my people are here, so I
Yeah.
mean, most of it. My mom's family is in, like, Northern Idaho and, like, Eastern Washington, but my parents are here. One of my brothers and sister-in-law and their kids are here, and, you know, it's this is my home, but, like, yeah, I wanna go experience lots of different places and, like, live somewhere else for a while, probably in Europe, but
Same. Just
I'm like,
waiting
"Can
for
I?"
our kids to evacuate.
Yeah, I know, we're on our last one, he graduates in May, so we're like, "Okay." But now my husband's in his master's program, so we can't leave until he's done, but
Couple more years, you've got it.
yeah, yeah, I'm like, "Can I quilt in Spain?" Probably, it'll be fine. But
You can definitely make it work.
yeah. So I saw that you guys are going to QuiltCon.
We are. Are you
That's fun.
going?
No.
Yeah.
No, because my youngest brother is getting married, like, at the end of April, and we were kinda like, "Ugh, we need
Yeah,
to focus on that trip." So,
yeah.
but
Getting
we
from, like, this region to Atlanta is, like, pretty pricey too.
well, yeah, and that's what we were kinda looking at, like, "Man, do we really have that to spend right now?" And as much as we really wanna go, it was just kind of like, that's a big jaunt, and yeah, we were just and it honestly was best that we didn't sign up because my husband's grandfather ended up passing away at the end of January, and then my grandfather passed away right at the beginning of this month. And so we've just had tons of family stuff, and we
I'm sorry.
did have to travel to Atlanta, the Atlanta area for my husband's grandfather.
Dang, I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's they were both they got to live long, long lives, and so it was kind of like sad, but also kind of like okay, it was.
Celebration of life, I guess.
Yeah, so, anyway, it was just kinda like, okay, it was good that we weren't signed up to go because we're still dealing with, all of that, so, anyway,
Yeah,
but yeah, we definitely wanna go next year, so I'm hoping that
yeah.
we can
I've
make
never
that work.
been, but
Mm,
my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, who I'm going with, are veteran quilt conners. So,
yeah,
I feel comfortable going, obviously, without them, but it's really nice to go with them and have them kinda know the lowdown and yeah.
yeah, well, and just yeah, have those familiar faces with you so you're not just like, "I hope I see somebody I recognize."
Yeah, like, there's a couple from our guild that are going and that I would feel comfortable, like, hanging out with and tagging along,
Mhm,
but I just, like I'm introverted, and so
mm,
I would feel so terrible and awkward, doing that, so, yeah.
yeah. How's podcasting then? Like, do you feel stressed about, like, having to talk to people or
Um, not really, it feels like Instagram continuation where,
mm.
like, I can still be super introverted in real life and then just put on this, like, "I'm crazy, extroverted, I'm outgoing on Instagram."
And then you need a nap.
Yes, and then I need to recoup for 3 days while I think about every word that I said and what I did wrong.
Right, I know. The worst part, honestly, is editing and having to re-listen to myself. I'm just like, "I am an embarrassing person." And then I'm like, "I'm gonna change my whole personality," and then it doesn't work, and I'm like, "Oh my god. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm stuck like this."
I I, like, find myself doing annoying things in the episodes, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even. I should not podcast. This is terrible." Just every single episode is a completely vicious cycle of, yeah, "What am I doing? This is terrible. Oh, people like it. Cool. Let's do another one."
Yeah, like, "Oh, that one got some views, that's a cool." Yeah, it's definitely weird. And my husband and I were just talking about this, just like he's like, "Is it surreal when you're, like, watching your video back to see like, watching yourself, I'm like, "Yeah, it feels like I'm watching a different person," but I'm, like, myself I'm not being someone else, it's just, like, I think it is, like, a weird thing to, like, see yourself and watch yourself and listen to yourself, it's like, "Oh, okay."
Like, I feel like podcasting has become so, like, approachable and, like, I mean, it's not easy to do, but, like,
No.
people normal people can have a podcast, and I
Mhm,
think maybe our generation has this, like, stigma of, like, podcasting is for professional people,
mhm,
like, the radio mentality of that
yeah,
being the same thing, and so I feel like it isn't something that I should be doing, and it feels a little, like, I don't know, um, it feels, like, extra adventurous to, like, be not I'm not a radio host, but in my mind, like, that's how this is playing out. I don't know.
mhm,
It's just a
yeah.
jumble of words.
No, I'm with you because I think I'd be like, "Okay, I have to, like, learn all these things, I need to research all this stuff, and I need to, like, practice and do all these things," and I'm just like, "Ugh, you know what? I'm just gonna give up because I'm not that person. I am just a regular girl trying to make this podcast because it's fun, it sounds fun, and I'll learn as I go, and I'm okay with I guess I had to get okay with the fact that, like, people were gonna see my mistakes and hopefully see my growth over time, but it
Yeah,
still is, like, so weird.
I agree. It's so bizarre to just like, "You guys are gonna give me this microphone? I could just buy this on Amazon and
Yeah,
headphones, and I can do it? Like,
I
you're
know.
gonna let me upload this and let people listen to I don't need to take a course or anything, like,
I know, I'm like,
one's
"Ooh."
checking. You guys can all just go start your own podcast."
Yeah. It's like, who is keeping this industry in check? No one.
Literally no one.
You answer to 0, but all I mean, you answer to society really, which
Yeah.
can be good or bad, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're doing it for your ego, just maybe don't do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Um,
it's, like, funny because you can tell the ones if you've ever listened to, ones that you can tell that that's their jam, you're like, I don't like that."
F 1 star.
Yeah, "I will not
Just
listen
kidding.
to you
Don't
again."
give anybody a 1 star. It just ruins their life, even
I
if it's a
know.
terrible podcast.
Just at least give them 3.
Yeah.
It's at least not
3
so
is like a
bad.
good warning for people if you really don't want people to listen to it.
Yeah, it's like, "Ooh, 3 stars? I don't know."
Otherwise, just keep scrolling.
Right? And I think that's, like, ultimately, like, online culture too, and going back to talking about, like, making mean comments about your quilts, it's like, just scroll on by, I didn't ask you to make a comment, like,
Right.
it's it is kind of a weird space to be in because she's like, you want people to see your stuff, and you wanna share that, and you want people to comment, but it's like, only if it's nice.
Yeah.
I didn't ask
Just
for
don't be a
critique.
jerk.
Yeah, yeah, it's like if I say, "What did I do wrong?" or "I need help with this thing," then by all means, give me your opinion, but if I say, "I want you to look at this," or like, "I'm so proud of this," then just be like, "Okay, good job," like or
Right.
don't say anything.
Right.
What's that, like, what, Thumper? If you can't say
Yeah.
something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Right. Just keep scrolling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
It's like it's a really fun process though. Like
Mhm,
I love setting up the interviews or the outline and like
mhm.
I mean we don't have like a script, but I
Yeah.
think we're both like pretty like anxious people in general and so like we do best when we have a pretty solid plan of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And so like writing that up is I love it,
Mhm.
and, like, it's so weird that I love it, and, like, she does all the spreadsheets and, like, organizes the things and the money and whatever, and, like, I'm just over here doing the creative side, like, planning out the interview or planning out the episode and doing the graphics for it and doing, like, the graphics for the t-shirt that people bought, which is just, like, a really weird, surreal feeling to, like, "Oh, somebody wanted to buy this thing that I put on a t-shirt? That's crazy."
I know. That's so fun. I know, I was like, "Oh, I kinda wanna make" like what you guys did. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I'm also like, who would even buy a shirt? I don't know. But I want one. Like I want one. I want a sweatshirt that has my logo on it, like,
Yeah,
but
you should
even
do
if
it.
nobody else wanted one, I would just still wear it.
You should do it. I'm telling you to do it.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am. I'll get
Put it
right
on
on
your
it.
to-do list.
I will. I'm writing it down right now. Take notes. No,
Listeners, she just pretended to write something down.
I'm really writing it. Make shirts. Okay, I did. I wrote it down for real this time.
Officially. Well, it looked like she wrote it down, guys.
I did, I swear. Look.
Okay, can confirm she wrote it.
And my notes about you. No. Questions I wanted to ask. Um, okay, so back to QuiltCon. Who are you most excited to see? I want to know.
Um, oh my gosh. I my like quilty crush is Maud McDonald, the retro quilter. And so I'm
Mm,
really excited to meet her in person.
yeah.
Um, I'm excited to meet Wendy Chow.
Mm,
There's a lot of I have this like Instagram little pod on in DMs that I'm excited to meet those girls and yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of like long arm quilters that I follow and stuff that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see you. You'll have to come talk to me first because I'm gonna be just in my bubble. But
Yeah.
as soon as you say hi, I'll light up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I'm shy, but come talk to me.
Yeah.
I get nervous about talking to people too if I'm like, oh my gosh. I did because when we went the quilt show we went to the UQSM
Okay.
show in 2017, I think so, to buy our long arm,
Mhm.
and Jenny Doan was there. And I was like, "Can I please have a picture with you?" She was like, "Sure." I was like, "Oh my God."
He's amazing.
Yeah, like the one time I went out of my way to be like, I'm gonna say hi to this person. Because normally I'd be like, slink back, be like, I don't want them to think I'm weird. But then I'm always like jealous of people who are like, oh, I saw this person in the airport and I said hi and got a picture. And I'm like, "Ugh, I wish I would have been that brave. It's like so many times when I've seen people that I'm like, oh my God."
I know they're like, I mean, celebrities are like basically just normal people that we all just love their work. And so I'm sure it's weird for them to be treated like celebrities.
They're like, I'm just a quilter. You're like, no, you're not. You're a
Can we
goddess,
have your autograph?
right? Can you sign my quilt? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm so sad I'm not going, but it's okay. I'll just live vicariously through everybody's Instagrams and
Yeah.
wish
I
and
mean,
make plans for next year.
you can email me a photo of your face and I can cut it out and tag it along with us if you want to be in some pictures. So
Okay.
just let me know.
Like, oh my gosh, that would be hilarious, but so embarrassing. I might
Yeah.
though. That sounds like a great idea.
I mean, just for giggles, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be so funny. Well, because like I've had a few people that I've interviewed and just like that chat with on Instagram or whatever. They're like, "Are you going to be at QuiltCon?" And I'm like, "No." And then I feel like I'm letting them down. And then I spiral and I'm like, "Oh, calm down. It's fine." Um, but
I like I think I've like been aware of it because of my sister-in-law and mother-in-law,
mhm,
but like this is the first year where I've been a quilter and I don't know if I could handle being a quilter now and not going to QuiltCon.
mhm.
So in the future, if I have to miss one, I think I think I will feel the same. And so your feelings are totally validated.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
They're pre-validated by me, by
Yeah,
future Ashlyn.
I accept because I need that. No, I'm so excited. Do you have like do you have a favorite design house or like a favorite kind of style of fabrics more than the other?
I really love the fabric that eBond makes. It Her new line is really pretty. It's
Mm,
really it almost looks like street art,
mm,
graffiti. Otherwise, I I kind of love all fabric, but as far as choosing what I want to make a quilt out of, I really struggle to actually find fabric that I wanna use.
Mm,
I th I think the industry has a long way to go in terms of, like, serving this side of modern, but
mhm,
I know that it's new and we're getting there, but yeah, I
yeah,
think Ebond, I really love Giuseppe Juicy Juice, his
mm,
line. I'm all about the, like, black and goth and that
yeah,
kinda stuff.
yeah,
I mean, that being said, I love like, I honestly can't think of a fabric line that I don't like.
mhm,
The textile is part of what draws me to quilting. I just love the surface design and,
mhm,
like, just thinking that, "Oh, somebody drew this either on a piece of paper or on a tablet, and
yeah,
now it is sitting in a fabric store." It blows my mind. Same with,
yeah,
like, I think that was the allure of the antique quilts originally too, and how I eventually started quilting was
mhm,
I would see the fabrics and be like, "Oh, this would be so amazing if it was this way or like XYZ." And
right,
I think, yeah, just I really love textiles. So that's a
mhm,
hard question, but I think those are the 2 that I would say I gravitate towards.
yeah. Do you like, Alexander Henry, like the Gasleys or anything like that?
Um,
Have you, like, seen
so
that?
my joke is that I have a stash and it's pretty much like all printed fabric,
Mhm.
but I, like, don't use any of it. S So, yeah, I buy I buy that fabric, but it's just, like, literally sitting in my
Right.
stash.
Yeah.
I can't cut it up or put it
Yeah.
in a quilt for some reason.
It's hard. I like his stuff is so fun and like just the big scenes and like how everybody just looks so grumpy. Like I love it so much.
Yeah,
But
I can't even remember. I think it might be called, like, Mardi Gras, maybe?
mm,
It's, like, all the skeletons and
mm,
it's, like, so spooky and so cool. Just,
yeah.
like, white background, black sketchy, like, skeletons in ball gowns, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. I can't think of the actual name of that line, but
Ooh, fun.
it's
Yeah.
sitting over there in my closet.
That's so fun. Yeah, I think it's like I love the mixture of genres too of like bringing, big bold florals in with like more kind of macabre or like
Mhm.
more kind of modern styles and mixing that is kind of I don't know. I just like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's really cool, and I just like seeing what people think of.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, like, how did your brain come up with that?" I don't know.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like I'm obsessed with the Ruby Star Girls because I think
Same.
their stuff is gorgeous and they all just have such a different little perspective on, like, how they design, but it feels very, like, modern and unapologetic. Like,
Mhm.
they're like, "Yeah, we're here to make what we wanna make, and we're gonna do it how we want." And I just love that, and I love their color palettes too, because it's, like, non-traditional, but it's still,
Right,
like, so fun.
right. It's still so approachable, like, just the way they do,
Mhm,
like, their different scale of prints, and
mhm.
I don't know, I think they they do a really good job. I'm excited for, like, those quilts to age, like, in
Yeah,
future decades and for us to pull them out and find this vintage quilt with ruby star fabric, and, like, we'll all know where that came from, so I think that's gonna be a cool part of quilting in the future, and seeing
yeah.
all the K facet quilts and the
Yeah,
tulip quilt. I'm
right?
really looking forward to that, actually.
Yeah. When that's vintage, you're like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah.
It is, like, a fun thing to think about because yeah, it's like everybody has, like, such a good, like, strong signature in what they create, so then, yeah, when it pops up in 40, 50 years, it's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh," instantly recognizable, whereas if you maybe pull a quilt that's from, the 30s or 40s, it's gonna just have a standard gingham or, like, a standard kinda calico print, and you're not
Right,
gonna know where it came from necessarily, so
right. Feedsack or
mhm, right?
or
Grandma's old
other.
apron.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool in and of itself, but I think the identity of knowing, like, where those fabrics came from or, like, who designed them and, like, that style, I think will be really cool for future
Yeah, I think so
purposes.
too. Yeah.
And I think it will help quilts hold their value too, because like you were saying, like, you can find, people donated quilts or just old vintage quilts that people have just gotten rid of because it doesn't really necessarily have a name or face to who designed it or who created it, and I think with the advent of modern quilting, it is gonna stand out more and you will be able to identify those things, and so maybe the value of them will change.
Yeah, even just the, like, heightened importance of adding labels to your quilts as you make them, I think is
Yeah.
really revolutionizing quilting.
Mhm.
Um, I know that, like, a quilt with a label is going to be even more valuable and precious in the future, and even as somebody that was reworking those vintage and antique quilts, like, if I
Mhm.
saw something with a label, like, that instantly gave it more value because I could place it in time and do research on it,
Right.
and potentially, like, ones like that you can salvage and give back to families,
Mhm.
but I think when there's a name on it, it's a lot harder to get rid of and just
Yeah.
throw into a trash pile or
Right.
donate, and I don't know, maybe that's bad and we don't want future generations to be hoarders for our sake, but I think there was so much lost in terms of quilts,
Mhm.
in the past, and I'm
Yeah.
excited that labels can help with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that we've been pushing to offer to clients, like, "Do you want a label on your quilt? Because we'll embroider it for you," and
That's so cool.
yeah, it's been a really great service, like, I feel good helping people, like, label their quilts, and they're putting their stamp on it, like, "I made this for you specifically." It's not just some random thing that, like, "Oh, I don't know where this came from." No, you know exactly where it came from, like,
Right,
because I think that's, just talking to people like, "Oh, I had this old quilt, but I don't know if it was, like, my great grandma, or I don't know who started it or who made it," like,
well,
so
shoot,
then
Nancy should have put a label on it.
yeah, exactly. It's like, "Come on, grandma." No.
But it's kind of sad to think that they didn't view their work as, like, worthy to, like, withstand history like that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that does make
yeah.
me sad, actually.
I know, it is kinda sad, it's like and maybe because quilting was more of a from a practical standpoint, like, so it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm making this really cool thing, this unique, gift for you, this handmade
Right,
thing," because everything was handmade, but I think just the perspective coming from, like, this this realm of, where everything's manufactured and mass produced, that then the reverse of that, like, oh, everything that's handmade now, not everything, but, these handmade items are coming back with a vengeance where maybe it didn't have as much value as before because everybody lived that way. And then having the newfangled, contraptions of technology was like the way to go. So I feel
right,
like maybe it's just a cycle, but it's also like a bummer that there's, like, a big chunk of history missing when you don't
right,
know who made this quilt that ended up in your family room somehow, but
right.
you don't know who made it, so,
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know. I hope, like I preach, like, "Put labels on your quilts," and have I put a label on a single quilt that I've ever made? No.
No.
I know, I'm so bad.
You're like,
Ugh.
"They know where it came from."
Yeah, but then it's like, are their kids gonna know? Are their kids' gonna know? But, I don't know, I guess I could, like, retroactively go back and try to attach something, but like, "Give me your quilt, I need to
Yeah.
put a label on it." My boys would be like,
Can I take that
"Why?"
back?
"Yeah, can I have that, Harry Potter quilt back real quick?" Be like, "No." I am gonna make a label on, uh, my our youngest who's graduating. He wants a quilt, so I'm gonna put a label on his quilt, so
Have you started it?
no, of course not. Why would I do that? That's silly.
Do you know what you're making? What is it
Yes,
gonna
I
look
do.
like?
We picked colors, he picked a pattern, so now I just have to go get the things and start it, but it's it's just half square triangles. It's kinda cool. I need to actually find the pattern. We just looked at a photo and he was like, "That's what I want." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I need to find the pattern, but, it should be pretty simple. But I'm one of those people that's like, even when I'm testing quilt patterns, I'm like down to the wire, like finishing it at 11:59 PM when it's due by midnight kinda thing. So,
I'm the same.
yeah, so that's probably what it's gonna be like. I'm like, furiously sewing the night before his graduation. So, I mean, I'm hoping not, but yeah.
It's like kind of procrastination, but it's actually just good time management. Like you actually know how long it's gonna take you. So you're
Yeah,
just waiting until you need that time.
exactly. Yeah, I'm like prioritizing other stuff first. So
Mhm.
that's what we'll call it.
Yeah, it's just you're healthily prioritizing.
Yeah, 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 for sure. For sure. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been super fun, and I'm so excited I got to meet you.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to meet you too and hop on here and talk to you.
Yeah, I can't wait for more episodes of your podcast, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your patterns and just watch you flourish in this community, and hopefully we can stay in touch, and thanks again.
Of course, it was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.